Okay, hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of English Grammar with Max. Today, we want to talk about reported speech and how to report questions and functions. In the previous episode, we talked about reporting statements. So, if you haven't seen that episode yet, I recommend you go and see that first, because we're going to need some rules of reporting statements to report questions and functions. Let's begin. Okay. Let's begin with questions, or how to report questions. We have two types of questions, WH and yes or no questions. In WH questions, we use WH question words like where, what, how, why, when, and so on. So, if your question starts with a WH question word, that is a WH question. If not, for example, it could be a yes or no question. Or for example, have you read this book? Or are you coming with me? When the answer is yes or no, we call them yes or no questions. So the way we report these two types of questions is a bit different. That's why we want to start with WH questions first. We have two rules. Rule number one, or rule A, push back the tense. If you haven't watched our previous episode, which was posted a week ago, we talked about reporting statements, and I have explained this rule completely before, and I refer you to the previous episode. The second rule, or rule B, use statement structure. I'll explain it when I'm explaining the examples. I have written 3 examples in here. The direct quote or direct speech says, where do you live? And again, when we are reporting statements, we use reporting verbs like said or told, or told me, say and tell. We mostly use with statements. But when we are reporting questions, we need to be more creative. The simplest reporting verb for a question is asked. We could say, she asked where. You start the second sentence after the reporting verb, the same WH word. She asked where I lived. The tense of the question is present simple. So according to rule A, you need to push it one step back. It means we need to use past simple. And besides, it's in here it says where do you live, auxiliary verb, subject, and the main verb. But in here we don't use an auxiliary verb because we are using the structure of a statement when we are reporting it. A second example, how do you go to school? Again, the tense of the question is in present simple. How do you go to school? So one thing we need to do is push the tense one step back. It needs to be in past simple. How do you go to school? Direct quote. He wanted to know. Again, we are being a bit creative with our reporting verbs. He wanted to know how, the same WH word, he wanted to know how I went to school. Present simple, past simple. Another example. Why haven't you finished? Again, the tense of the question is in present perfect. And according to rule A, we need to change it to past perfect. She was wondering, again, another way, a different way of reporting a question. She was wondering why I hadn't finished. So haven't you, I hadn't. In here, we use the structure of a statement. It is no more the structure of a question because we are reporting it. Okay, now let's see how we report yes or no questions. For reporting yes or no questions, we have 3 rules. The first rule is the same rule we use for reporting statements and WH questions. We need to push back the tense one step back. The second rule, we need to use the statement structure. Again, these two first rules we use for reporting WH questions. We have another rule for reporting yes or no questions. We use if or whether. In this topic, or in this context, there is no difference between if and whether. Let's see these examples. Direct quote, are you studying? This is a yes or no question. He asked me you could say he asked or he asked me. Both are possible. He asked me, and then you need to use if or whether. I was studying. So, are you studying? We use the auxiliary verb first, subject, and the main verb when you're asking the question directly. But when you report it, we use the subject first, just like a statement, I was studying, because this is the reported version of the question. Another example, have you met? They were wondering if, again, we'd met, because the tense of this direct question is present perfect, so we need to push it back to past perfect. Another question, did you lock the door? The tense of the question is in past simple, so we need to change it to past perfect. She asked whether, again, you could use if or whether. There is no difference. She asked whether I'd locked the door. It looks like a statement because this is a reported question, and we use past perfect tense because the direct question is in past simple. Okay, we covered reporting statements and questions. Now, the question we want to answer is, how do we report functions? Function means, for example, we have a lot of functions in English. Suggestion, advice, request, command, apologizing, and offering, and so on. We have a lot of functions. So we have different ways for reporting functions. Let's start with these three functions. A request. The direct quote is, or the direct request is, could you help me please? As you can see, this is in the form of a question, so you could choose to report it as a question. We could say, she asked me if I could help her, for example. But this is a request. This is not like a mere question, so we report it as a request, not as a question. This is a better choice. We say, she asked me to help her. For most functions, we use the infinitive form to report them. For example, she asked me, this is the reporting verb. Again, you need to be a bit creative about your reporting verb, depending on what you are reporting. We are reporting a request in here, so it is appropriate to use asked, or she told me, for example. You could also use for a request. She asked me to help her. We use the infinitive form for reporting most functions. Another function, advice. You are giving advice to someone. We say, this is the direct quote or direct advice. I wouldn't do that if I were you. So now we are reporting it. We use the reporting verb advise. We say, she advised me not to do it. Again, the infinitive form, but this time the negative infinitive form. Another function, command. Clean your room. This is a command, or this is an order. So we use the reporting verb order to report it. We say, she ordered me to clean my room. Again, we use the infinitive form to report another function. Okay, now three more functions. Decision is another function. In the direct quote, we could say, I'll take the blue shirt. This is an instant decision. I'll take the blue shirt. So you could report it just like a statement, but this is a decision, so it is more appropriate to report it as a decision. That's why we could use the reporting verb decide or decided. He decided to take. Again, we use the infinitive to report another function. Next function is offer. Shall I open the door for you? This is the direct quote. Again, it is in the form of a question, but it is actually expressing an offer. So we report it as an offer. We use the reporting verb offered. He offered to open. Again, we use infinitive to report another function. Next function, apologizing. You're apologizing to someone for something you have done or you think you have done. Sorry, I broke your watch. This is the direct quote. So we use the reporting verb apologized. He apologized for breaking my watch. This case, this function is a bit different. We use for after apologize. And because for is a preposition, we use gerund after it. It means the verb in the ing form. Okay, the last function we want to talk about today is suggestion, because it is a bit different from the other functions. We have three ways to report a suggestion. Let's say our direct suggestion or the direct quote is, let's see a film. This is a suggestion. So we use, first thing we use, for example, the reporting verb suggested. We say, she suggested. This is one option we have for reporting a suggestion. She suggested we see a film, or we should see a film. You could use should or not. And as you can see, we see. We use the base form of the main verb to report a suggestion. Another option you have, again, she suggested, the same reporting verb. We saw a film. We use the past form of the main verb. And the third option you have is the gerund. So she suggested seeing a film. You have all these options if you want to report a suggestion. But remember, you don't have the option of using the infinitive. For example, we can never say that she suggested to see a film. This is a common mistake a lot of English learners make, and I want you to avoid making this mistake. Okay, now let's take a look at some exercises. These exercises are from the book Intermediate Language Practice. Let's begin. Okay, let's begin with the exercises. The first one, complete each question in direct speech, ending as shown. In here, you are given the reported speech form, and you're supposed to turn it back to the direct speech again. A. Jack asked me whether I was having lunch or going out. So, this is the reported version. We say Jack asked me whether I was having. The form of the reported question is past continuous. So the form of the direct question should be in present continuous. And we used whether, so we realize this is a yes or no question. So the question is, are you having lunch or going out? Jack asked me. B. Carol asked Anne what she had done the day before. Again, this is a WH question, and the tense of the reported question is in past perfect. So we have two options. We could use present perfect or past simple for the direct question. But as you can see, we have a specific time in here, and it indicates that we need to use past simple, because it is impossible to use present perfect with a specific past time. So the answer is, what did you do yesterday, Anne? And again, as you can see, we have changed this time expression while reporting the question. C. John asked us if we often went sailing. The reported question has used if, so this is a this is a yes or no question. And the tense of the question is in past simple. So the question is, do you often go sailing? The form is, or the tense is present simple. D. Christine asked me how many German books I had read. This is a WH question, and the tense of the question is in past perfect. So the direct question is, how many German books have you read? Present perfect. E. Kevin asked Sue if she was going to change schools. Again, we have used if in here, so this is a yes or no question, and the tense of the reported question is in past continuous. So we need to use present continuous, or be going to in the present form. Are you going to change schools, Sue? F. Alice asked me who I sat next to in class. This is a reported question, a WH reported question, and the tense of the question is in past simple. So we need to change it to present simple, because we are doing the opposite. We are writing the direct questions out of indirect or reported questions. Who do you sit next to in class? Alice asked me. Next exercise. Rewrite each sentence in reported speech, beginning as shown. Do not change the meaning. A. Are you staying here all summer? The little girl asked me. The direct question is in present continuous. So we need to push it back to past continuous. And besides, it is a yes or no question, so we need to use if or whether. The little girl asked me if I was staying there all summer. And again, we changed here to there. We change the references to time and place if necessary. B. What does procrastinate mean? I asked my teacher. This is a WH question, and the tense of the question is in present simple. So we need to push it back to past simple. What procrastinate meant? I asked my teacher what procrastinate meant. Again, we are reporting the question. That's why we don't use the structure for a question. We use the structure for a statement. We don't say what did procrastinate mean. We say what procrastinate meant. The form is the form of a statement. C. Have you done your homework or not? My mother asked me. The tense of the question is in present perfect, so we need to push it back to past perfect. And besides, this is a yes or no question, so we need to use if or whether. My mother asked me if I had done my homework. D. When is your birthday? I asked Sue. This is a WH question, and the tense of the question is in present simple. So I asked Sue when her birthday was, past simple, and the structure of a statement. E. Did you remember to lock the door? My father asked me. The tense of the question is in past simple, so we need to push it back to past perfect. And besides, this is a yes or no question, so we need to use if or whether. My father asked me if I'd remembered to lock the door, past perfect. F. Why have you turned off the television? Ellen asked me. The tense of the question is in present perfect, so we need to push it back to past perfect, and this is a WH question. So Ellen asked me why I had turned off the TV. Okay, let's start with the last exercise. Use a verb from the box to rewrite each sentence and report the speech. Beginning as shown, do not change the meaning. The verbs are reporting verbs. Advised for the function of advice, apologized for apologizing, congratulated, invited, offered, promised, refused, and suggested. A. I'll definitely be at your house before 8, Sue, said Mike. This is apparently a promise, so we use the reporting verb promise. Mike promised Sue to be at her house before 8. Again, you definitely have the option to use this as a statement, to report this as a statement. For example, to say, Mike said he would definitely be there, but this is a promise, so it is more appropriate to use this way of reporting it. B. Would you like to come to the cinema, Jean? Asked Chris. This is an invitation, so we report it as an invitation. Chris invited Jean to go to the cinema. Again, we use, in reporting this function, we use the infinitive. C. I wouldn't eat too much if I were you, Dave, said Patsy. This is a piece of advice, so we use the reporting verb advised. Patsy advised Dave not to eat too much. This is a negative form of the infinitive, to eat. D. How about going for a walk? Said Nick. This is a suggestion, so we could use the reporting verb suggested. Nick suggested we go for a walk. You have two other options in here. You could also say Nick suggested we should go for a walk, or Nick suggested we went for a walk, or Nick suggested going for a walk. But again, remember, never use infinitive with suggested. E. I'm terribly sorry for breaking the window, said Carol. Carol apologized for breaking the window. This is a function of apologizing, and after that we use the preposition for following a gerund of the main verb. F. Shall I do the washing up? Said Bill. This is an offer, so we used offered as a reporting verb. Bill offered to do, infinitive again, to do the washing up. G. Well done, you've passed your test, said Tina's mother. Tina's mother congratulated her on passing her test. Look at example E. It is apologized for, so the dependent preposition for apologize is for. But in G, the dependent preposition for congratulate is on. But after both of them, we use the gerund. So Tina's mother congratulated her on passing her test. And the last one, H. No, I won't open my mouth, said Pat. We say Pat refused. This is refusing and denying or agreeing, disagreeing. These are all functions in English, so we could report them as a function. I won't open my mouth. Pat refused to open his mouth. And again, to report the function of refusing, we use infinitive. All right. Thank you for watching another English Grammar with Max. I hope you liked it. So if so, please don't forget to like our videos and subscribe to our channel. See you next time.